We spend, as policymakers in Kentucky and around the country, an inordinate amount of time revisiting policies that were passed 10, 20, and 30 years ago as knee-jerk reactions to some bad thing that happened, instead of relying on what the objective data tells us we should do. As a result, we spend countless millions or billions of dollars nationwide on policies that are wrong-headed, good-intended, well-intended, but ineffective. Data makes all the difference in the world, and if you don't have it, you can't be informed and make good policy decisions.
Ideally, what we would love to see in the juvenile justice system is to have science being able to guide practice and policy. What that basically means is if we could take developmental psychology and apply what we know from developmental science to legal practice, we want the system to be developmentally appropriate for the kids that it serves. Most people often think of adolescents making very poor decisions. In fact, if you look at risk-taking behavior in general, risk-taking peaks during the adolescent years. It actually peaks around 18, 19, 20 years of age and then declines. But it's also a time of enormous growth, an enormous opportunity for kids to explore, to engage. It's actually very normative. In fact, it's important. You're supposed to take risks. You're supposed to try things. It's how we learn. But what do you do with the kid who's committed their very first offense? And it's a mid-level offense. Do you throw the book at them and get tough on crime? Kids are different, and we should give them a second chance.
I think when kids are incarcerated, the research tells us that it yields very poor outcomes for kids. They're put into an antisocial environment, and most likely they're going to come out practicing antisocial behaviors, which will, of course, cause them to come back in contact with the system. And I think one of the things that we've done here in Kentucky is also taking a very individualized approach. I think that the Kentucky diversion program is yielding very significant outcomes because what we're seeing is that over 90% of the kids are actually succeeding in their diversion opportunities, and nearly 40% of the kids that fail don't recidivate within a 3-year period. So what we're finding is that if we can keep kids in community and have more of a soft touch in addressing the delinquent behavior, we're finding more and more kids being successful in community.
Me personally, I think probation is not the answer. Like I said, we're still trying to get a career. We're still trying to figure out our life. We're still trying to get it out. We're still trying to put it together. So it's hard to try to put our life together when you got this burden over your shoulder looking down at you. There's other ways that you can handle the youth instead of charging them for every single thing like they're adults. So I think like a good one is community service. He's still a child. He's not a grown man, not a grown woman.
One of the things that we've been doing in our research is really to better understand how to respond developmentally appropriately to kids in the justice system. For example, in the Crossroads study, we've been following 1,200 adolescents. They started at the ages of 13 to 17. We've been following them for 9 years, and what we found was those who were informally processed, that is, they got diversion, they were able to do community service, to write a letter of apology, to get some sort of informal treatment. Those young men are now more likely to have graduated from high school, have a more optimistic outlook on their future, and more importantly, they were less likely to be incarcerated or to offend during that 5-year period. If you formally process this young man, if you get really tough, if you do the punitive response, our research is showing you're actually going to make that young man worse 5 years later. They're more likely to continue crime, they're more likely to be arrested, they're less likely to graduate from high school.
I have said often in my time at legislature that one of the things that impressed me is how good data drives good policy. And I think one of the things, for example, that we've learned with our data is, with respect to recidivism, is that with our young people, the more contact they have with law enforcement, the more contact they have with the criminal justice system, there is a higher likelihood that they will recidivate. We will see those children again, either as children or as an adult. One of the things that we did with the reform was we defined a line where certain school-based offenses could not be referred to juvenile court. That includes truancy as well. The year before our juvenile justice reform was passed, we had 1,000 referrals for habitual truancy. That was in 2019. In 2021, that number dropped to 9. That's significant. One of the approaches that I think is effective here is, instead of taking over the role of the parent by taking a child out of the home, by incarcerating them or putting them in residential treatment, instead of that, we leave them in the home, we provide the services there, we work with the parents, and the home and the parents and the family become part of that rehabilitation process.
Data really drives our focus. Data drives the foundation of the work that we do. We're able to show that data by race, by gender, by the diversity of a community, by the location of where a complaint may be filed. And then to be able to show the outcomes on what's working, what is not working, has been huge to Kentucky's juvenile justice effort. Kentucky began working on juvenile justice reforms in 2012 and 2013, with legislation actually passing in 2014. That legislation provided an opportunity to enhance the role of our pre-court diversion court-designated worker program, and allowed for the opportunity for more youth to be able to have access to diversion instead of going to the court. It is important to divert our youth from the juvenile justice system, primarily because we know that our kids can really grow and thrive the best within their own communities.
I mean, it's simple. I'll put it to you like this. If we're gonna treat kids like adults, then in that case it would be children driving, operating trucks and big machinery and running businesses and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we're gonna hold everybody to an equal level and stuff like that, let's hold them all to an equal level. Well, I feel like diversion, as far as importance goes, like the weighing of diversion over probation, it gives you more of a, okay, you don't feel like really a criminal type situation, because like when they put you on probation, in a way, like the process is, it make you feel like, dang, what'd I do? I done robbed the bank or something like that. The importance of diversion, it makes you feel like you have like more options, you know what I'm saying? More chances, more ways to correct whatever's been going on. A society that doesn't take care of its youth, it's a society that doesn't care. It shows the lack of their ability to even wrap their heads around how unhealthy it is. You know what I'm saying? These practices, and as far as how they operate and the systems that they create.
Every parent knows that every child needs to be held accountable. It's not saying that somebody shouldn't be held accountable, it's how you hold them accountable. And so by holding them accountable, but in developmentally appropriate ways, our research is finding that the outcomes are not only better for the young men, but for our community as a whole. Justice is what you make of it, because we have the power to decide how we want to treat young people in this country. And we should be using the science to help guide those practices and policies.